Paul Edelson. I'm the president of Ocean Township Historical Museum, and we're here today to unveil what's known as Potter's Cave. There's been a lot of rumor about it for many, many years, and Jim Foley and Rich Fernicola, who are very good at tracing, going there back, reading deeds, using chains and links, which is all they to find places, and they have decided they have the documentation that the thing called Potter's Cave was here. Now, who was Potter? Potter was probably the first landowner in Ocean Township, before Ocean Township. We're back in the 1600s. He owned land all over the place, right? I think he probably started in a cave, but I don't think he lived in a cave forever and ever. But the property here, which, let's say the Woolley property, which starts out on Roller Road down to Whale Pond, all right, he at one time owned that before the Woolleys did. So I'm going to turn it over to Jim. Let's take its picture. All right, we'll show you the plaque, and then Jim will explain to you how we found all this stuff. So let's come over here.
Yeah, but before I start speaking, Mayor John Knapp and Paul and Councilman Dave are going to unveil the plaque.
Okay. We did it before, so
we only practiced.
We took pictures. We took pictures so we didn't screw it up.
No.
All right, here we go.
We ready? One.
This is the most beautiful in Ocean Township.
2, 3.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great. Excellent. Excellent.
All right, now I turn it over to Jim Foley.
All right,
who
Mr.
knows
Mayor,
everything.
please.
Sure.
And the mayor.
I want to thank everybody for coming out here today. The Historical Society has been an integral part of the Township of Ocean. I want to thank 2 former deputy mayors for being out here. Dave Hires, who served this municipality, along with Richie Long, who was our best dressed councilman ever on the Township Council. And I want to thank my present deputy mayor, David Fisher, for being out here. So the 4 of us have something in common. We've all been the deputy mayor at some point. So really, all of the historical pieces to the Township of Ocean have been put together by a team, and it's not us that stand up here in the governing body. It's other people that run our different departments and different groups. And I'm a big history guy, so I really like to know what's going on. And Paul's been great. Anytime I ever go to him and ask him a question, he's got all of the knowledge base that I need, because I'm not going to know all the stuff, but I do sink it in my head. So this is a very exciting day that we've got this plaque being put up here today, and Jim is going to come up, and I have a lot of respect for Jim because he's done tremendous work throughout the county, especially with the Church of the 7 Presidents. I've got a lot of respect for what he's done up there in fundraising, and I was talking to him before about the Stu Seal Tower, and a couple of ideas I'd like to come up with to raise some funds so that we can, do some more fixes on that, because ever since it got lit up, now that you can see that tower all the way across the highway, which is gorgeous at night. It really stands out, and I think it's just really a nice piece to what we have back here. So Jim, I'm gonna bring you up, and I also wanna thank Dr. Fernicola, who I've known since I was a kid. So it's real good. Like I told him and Jim, they got their names on a plaque, and they didn't even have to get elected to do it. Come on up, Jim.
All right, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Rich, come on, don't be bashful. So,
let's go, Doc.
I echo everything Jim is going to tell you.
So the first thing I want to say is thank you to Peggy, because Peggy is the one who designed this beautiful plaque. It's her brainchild, and kudos to you, Peggy.
Hey, Peggy.
And we're going to, after we finish here, because we're only going to be here for a couple of minutes, and those who like painful detail about Thomas Potter and the 1,000 acres that he owned can go over to the museum, and then Rich and I will share stories about how over the past 30 years it took us to find this cave, which ends up being in Thomas Potter's backyard, but anyway. Yeah, Thomas Potter was the first European landowner in present-day Ocean Township, and the story goes that prior to his building a more pretentious dwelling, he built a cave which was like 4 feet down into the ground and 3 feet high and covered with sod and mud and branches and a hole in the middle for smoke to come out and an entrance for a doorway. And after he built his home, he used this cave as a blacksmith shop. Because when you owned a farm, you had to be a farmer and a gardener and a fisherman and a blacksmith and a horseman, and you had to do everything on your farm. So Rich and I had invited actually Dr. John Amato to come, who was our 7th grade teacher over at St. Mary's Grammar School, but he's not in town today. But as any good Catholic school is going to do, is take you on a class trip. Well, you walk 50 feet from the school to Drummond Cemetery on Wickapecka Drive and call it a class trip. But that was, for me, the beginning of, oh wow, history. And then Rich reminds us that Marge Edelson and Kay Zimmerman and others came over to St. Mary's Grammar School and told us about the history of Ocean Township and all the cool things that happened, one of which was Thomas Potter's Cave. So all you got to do is tell a little 5th grader about a cave and we're hooked. So all these years later, and the plaque is finally realized, and those of you that really love history come to the museum. Some people here say they love history, but they're going to leave here and go to the beach. I don't know who's that going to be, but John knows that he can hear the history anytime he wants. So, Rich, you want to say anything?
Thank you, Jim. I really have nothing to add except to emphasize a thank you to not only the great governing body now and in the past in Ocean Township, but also the support of historians, which Jim had mentioned. Dr. Amato spurred us on to visit the Drummond Cemetery, which is right down the road from Ivy Hedge there, St. Mary's School. But additionally, the Marge Edelsons, the early historical society people, after the 1949 book was put together, they obviously, it was rewritten and enhanced and so on and so forth, copied. But there were also the legends of the Drummond clan, one marrying, and even though it's lore, an Indian maiden, and the sale of the area in this region for gunpowder and kettles and things of that nature, and all of that fantastic lore. But to look at the dating on this, Thomas Potter really got here probably right after the Monmouth patent was 1664. So he was really here quite early, even before the 1670, in reference to that cave dwelling. So that cave dwelling really represents his first entry into Ocean Township, and as I suppose as a talented man, brave, probably a hardy woodsman and a gunsmith or a blacksmith. Really, it's a fantastic story for all the youth and our children and nieces and nephews, and it kept Jim and I, that's just one, Thomas Potter is just one example of what we should be so proud of. Even if we move away here from one time or another, you can always remember that we are attached to the earliest immigration from Europe and that first interaction with the Native Americans we are still very proud of, especially in this community. And I think that's what the cave, even though it's not total or in the whole something fully visible necessarily, it's still tangible, and it gets us to looking deeper into our local heritage. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks, Doc. All right, so if everybody wants to head over to the museum and get a little historical lesson, you're more than welcome to. Thank you for coming out today.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, who are coming back to the Eden Woolley House to discuss the Potter's Cave. And we're glad everybody that went down there. It was very good. It's on the trail now. People can see it. But a lot of people will say, well, what is Potter's Cave? We have all of the documentation, and thanks to Dr. Fernicola and Jim Foley, they really put it all together. A lot of work looking at deeds and chains and links and everything like that. So I'm going to turn it over now to Jim Foley, who will answer any question or tell you anything. He's got a world of knowledge.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, good afternoon and thanks for being here. The first thing I alluded to this earlier, when Dr. Fernicola and I were in grammar school, I think it was 5th grade or 6th grade, whatever, the Ocean Township Museum people came over to our school and talked to us about the history of Ocean Township and all the cool things that were here, including something about a cave. And in this book, they talked about the first settlers of New Jersey built caves where they lived in while they were building more suitable housing. And then afterwards, they would use those caves as a workshop or a garage or a cellar or whatever. And the first person to ever live in Ocean Township that wasn't a Native American, because all the artifacts in this room are Native American artifacts, most of which were recovered from this property over the past 15 years. But he was the first person to live in Ocean Township. And he built this cave, and then stories about the cave were told over and over. So Dr. Fernicola, and I'll call him Rich, because that's what we called each other when we were classmates, we thought that was really cool. There's a cave, and now Dr. Amato took us to the Drummond Cemetery on Wickapecka Drive, and there's a lot of cool stuff around here. So we start researching. And the first thing we did is in this blue book from Ocean Township, it says that Potter's Cave was next to the Drummond farm, and the cave was actually built on Hog Swamp Creek. Anybody know where Hog Swamp Creek is other than Dr. Fernicola? That's the creek, if you go on Roosevelt Avenue, that S-turn, well, there's a creek that runs right underneath that, and that was Hog Swamp Creek. Later in the 1930s or 20s was changed to Harvey's Creek after George Breton McClellan Harvey, who was the editor of Harper's Weekly and the Washington Post, lived there on the corner of Wickapecka Drive and Roosevelt Avenue. Actually, in the other room is a curling iron that was found in the 1960s or 70s that came from Colonel Harvey's property, and it was found in the creek. So Rich and I spent a lot of time walking up and down Hog Swamp Creek, and even though we didn't find Potter's Cave in the creek, we found some pretty interesting things. This is just a rock, but it kind of looks like a finger, and I picked that, and in my mind I'm like, could this be a human finger that got petrified, and how many years would it take to petrify a human finger and all that type of stuff? But no, it's just a rock. But it was something, okay? And we keep looking and we keep looking, and we don't find it, and but then we go to other books. So this is a book written in 1914 by a guy by the name of George Castor Martin, and he again is telling the story about Potter's Cave. And he pretty much says everything that's in this blue book, including that it's on Hog Swamp Creek. So Rich and I, we keep looking and we keep looking, and we're like, how come we can't find this? And then I don't have an original copy because in 1868, a guy by the name of John Schenck wrote a book, and the title of it was A Descriptive Guide to Long Branch. And here again, he's talking about Potter's Cave, 1868. Near the residence of Peter Drummond. Well, we know where all the Drummonds live, Wickapecka Drive, okay? At Poplar, directly west of Deal. Okay, well, Deal Golf Course, west is yada, yada, yada. A cave formerly existed, in which Potter long lived after his immigration from England, and here for some years was his smith shop. His daughter, an only child, married John Woolley. Well, this house is called the Woolley House, and that was Thomas Potter's daughter married John Woolley, and that started the whole Woolley existence here in Monmouth County. But then there was something really cool that struck my mind when I read this. It's like, after Edwin Woolley, while digging marl on the old farm, struck the site of the cave and found some implements of ancestral industry, hammers and tongs and other tools that would be associated with a blacksmith. And then to me, this was the really cool part. And a Judge Drummond is said to have held court in this old house or this old cave in former years. Now, this is why you have to do research. First of all, in Monmouth County, there never was a Judge Drummond. All right, even though there were Drummonds all over the place, there was no Judge Drummond. There was a court clerk named Gavin Drummond in 1701. He was a court clerk. And back then, in the early 1700s, the county courts would rotate. 1 month they'd be in Shrewsbury, 1 month they'd be in Middletown. So the possibility that a court could be held here is possible, but not probable. And interestingly enough, in 1701, and this is a story for a whole nother topic, Gavin Drummond, as court clerk, a pirate who sailed with Captain William Kidd, was on trial for piracy, and all the local Monmouth County residents stormed the courthouse, put Gavin Drummond and the judge, who was actually the governor of New Jersey, in jail, and let Moses Butterworth make his escape, because they argued the court did not have the jurisdiction. It should have been an admiralty court for law violations occurring on this high seas and not on land. But that was pretty cool that, wow, Schenck was saying that there was possibly a court held in Thomas Potter's cave. So Rich and I keep searching Hog Swamp Creek, because everybody's saying Hog Swamp Creek, Hog Swamp Creek, okay? And then we find some other cool stuff, all right? Now, if you ever walk the beach in Deal or Allenhurst or Long Branch, Lock Arbor, and you find those green stones, that's marl. Anybody know what marl is, other than Dr. Vernicola? All right. Marl is basically just a sediment in the bottom of the ocean of all the dead sea creatures that decompose over millions of years, and it was used actually on this farm as a fertilizer. All right. The Woolley family would experiment with marl, placing it as opposed to horse manure. But this actually had a giant seashell, was filled with marl, and then over the years the shell itself broke away, but the shell remnants, the innards, are still to be seen. And then, just so you know, these two things are going to be donated to the museum as just part of the story of how we ended up finding Potter's Cave, which was not on Hog Swamp Creek. Okay, so thank you for all these historians, but I do say thank you because they started the ball rolling and they piqued our curiosity, and then we had access to more documents that weren't available to them at the time. One of the things that happened in 1937 was Lydia Woolley, who was a descendant of the original John Woolley. She gave an interview to the Asbury Park Press, talking about 200 years at the Woolley house and no ghosts. So apparently this house is not haunted, which for me was disappointing because a ghost story is a great story. But anyway, Lydia talks about Thomas Potter's Cave being on Poplar Brook. We're like, Poplar Brook? Everybody else says it's on Hog Swamp Creek, but Poplar Brook. So Rich and I start searching Poplar Brook. And then the advent of the computer and the internet, and you can search records and deeds online. We didn't have to go sit in the courthouse in Freehold or Manalapan Library. And we found like a treasure map, directions on how to get to Potter's Cave. So now we're really excited. And it says that you have to go to the second creek above Crowfoot Gully. Anybody know where Crowfoot Gully is? The borough of Deal was incorporated on March 7th, 1898. and the western boundary of Deal cuts through the Deal golf course just west of the clubhouse, and there's a small little creek there, and that's called Crowfoot Gully. All right, so now we know where Crowfoot Gully is, so we have to find the second creek above Crowfoot Gully, which is west of Crowfoot Gully. So we start walking through Deal Lake, the northern branch of Deal Lake, and up Crowfoot Gully, and crossing over Roselle Avenue at the S-turn, because right at the S-turn is the first creek above Crowfoot Gully, and then probably another 100 yards west of that is the second creek above Crowfoot Gully, which, if you look, is pretty much in line with Wickapecka Drive. And if you took a drone and went up high enough, you'd see Wickapecka Drive, if it continued north, would pretty much connect with Whale Pond Road. So, you know, we follow the directions, the second creek above Crowfoot Gully, so many links and chains north to Poplar Brook, and then so many links and chains west to Potter's Cave. And that was a deed in 1707. There was another deed in 1714, and another deed in 1747. So all these deeds are saying the exact same thing with the same directions, okay? And then, if I can find it, there was an article in the newspaper in 1876 saying that Edwin Woolley, while digging marl on the family farm, came across Potter's Cave and found those implements, like I talked about earlier, the hammer and the tongs and those types of things. Now, that's written in the newspaper. That newspaper article was wrong. And we know it was wrong because we got a letter in the newspaper in 1876 from Edwin Woolley saying, I don't know anything about these tools that you're talking about, but if somebody has them, I'm a descendant of Thomas Potter, so let me know and I'll buy them from you, okay? Because it wasn't Edwin Woolley who found the tools, it was the owner of this house, Eden Woolley, who found the tools, which makes sense, all right? And it's easy to confuse those two names between Edwin and Eden, but we can prove that when we get the documentation. So, one of the things that I teased Tom with earlier is that there's one more thing in this box which hasn't been publicly displayed before, but after I take it out of the box, it will become part of the Ocean Township Museum collection of artifacts, and it's actually a piece of Thomas Potter's Cave, and you can tell that this piece of fieldstone has been worked. It's, you know, it didn't come natural this way, and when Rich and I, you can see the nice edges to it, and this would have been used for a corner or wherever, some part of it, but you know, this is a really cool piece of the actual cave of Thomas Potter. So those are all the prepared comments that I have. I don't know if anybody has any questions, or Rich, if you want to add anything else about how much fun it was looking for Potter's Cave, except one time, you know, while we're climbing around Deal Lake, and they had lowered the lake to do dredging, I got sucked down, not in quicksand, but in the muck up to my mid-chest, and I couldn't get out. And I start yelling, Rich, need a little help over here, need a little help, and he runs and grabs a stick and, you know, pulled me out. So you saved my life, Tom.
Yes.
Right?
One of many times.
Yeah.
No. It's probably the other way around.
Peg.
Jim, how did you and Rich feel when you found it? I mean, this has been a lifelong quest for you, right?
Yeah.
And were you disappointed? Did you expect more drama? How, you know, what was it like? Because for the uneducated eye, you would walk by and never know
Yes.
this unbelievable rich history.
Right. It was partially excited, partially disappointed that it's not a cave that's still in existence. It's like when I learned that I think it was in 1814, the first meteorite ever to fall in New Jersey fell on the West Farm here in what was then Ocean Township. So the first meteorite in the history of New Jersey lands in Ocean Township. And then I do research and I find out that the largest portion of this meteorite was 3 inches. So that was a big disappointment. It's like, are you kidding me? And that's in the museum in Philadelphia. But no, for me it was cool because it proved to me that if you do enough research and if you just keep looking and you never give up, I mean, I don't know how many people are insane enough to spend 20, 25 years looking for something. And who knows how many people have spent those years looking for something and never found it. But, you know, persistence paid off.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you.